And I just wanted to introduce myself first. I'm Julia Chalker. I'm transition coordinator here in Prosper ISD. And I wanted to tell you that I'm doing this in front of the computer because we have so many more people doing it online and we wanted to get a good recording. But we will be answering questions for both our online and our in-person folks. And if I don't see you, y'all give me, let me know. Yeah, or you could write it in the chat, either way. And I don't mind. We'll have lots of time for questions at the end. But again, I'm Julia Chalker, transition coordinator. You want to introduce yourself, Courtney?
Hi, I'm Courtney Jennings. I'm the District 504 coordinator.
No, it's okay. I have someone else here. Evan, want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Evan Ferris. I'm transition specialist at Walnut Grove.
Our Walnut Grove transition specialist.
I'm Juliana Murray. I'm at Rock Hill. I'm the transition specialist.
Juliana Murray from Rock Hill.
I'm Drew Webb, the transition specialist here at PHS.
And Drew Webb from PHS. And then Alicia?
Hi, I'm Alicia Schultz. I'm the college and career counselor from Collin College. I'm housed at both Prosper and Walnut Grove.
And when they are going to be talking about any slides, we'll have them come up here so you can hear better. So, but anyway, welcome, and we will get started. We have lots to talk about, and just know that the slides are really detailed. I sent y'all the slides that are out in at home, and I can also send y'all a digital copy of those. So, okay. So I'm sure all of y'all are here tonight to learn more about the whole difference between high school and the college or post-secondary setting, and y'all did our true and false already. But first, we're going to start by talking about what are the general differences for anyone between high school and college. And then we'll talk more specifically towards someone with a disability. So, and a lot of this sounds really obvious, but it's nice to have it spelled out. So in high school, we have to go to high school, right? We have compulsory attendance laws. It's required, and high school is usually free. Free high school is available. College, obviously, you don't have to go to college. It's voluntary, and as y'all probably are aware, it can be very expensive. A big difference between high school and college is that whole personal responsibility. In high school, they have more freedom than we probably did when we were in high school, but they basically, they're living at home, classes are arranged for them. They don't have to really know what it takes to graduate. The parent and the counselor, they're all helping track that. And basically they're told what to do, and they have behavior guidelines and discipline guidelines, and they have to do what they need to do. In college, so much more freedom. They may be living on their own for the very first time, and they get to arrange their classes and take the classes that they want. And they are expected to know what those complex graduation requirements are, even though they work with a counselor. And the biggest thing is they are the one responsible for knowing what to do and what expectations are. And they also have to face consequences if they don't get done what they're supposed to do. As far as structure, high school is pretty structured. We basically have classes all day long in high school, and, you may spend 6 hours a day, 30 hours a week in class. And we don't generally have a lot of homework these days. I think there's been kind of a shift in that direction. A big thing is there's usually 35 or kids or less in a class. And we've got some beautiful big buildings here in Prosper, but generally we're in one big building and they're not having to go from building to building. Whereas when they go to college, there's going to be a lot less structure. The student is basically able to set their own schedule within parameters. And they may only spend, 12 to 16 hours actually in class. And, they may have classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They might have Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. They might have an evening class and a morning class. Their schedule can be all over the place. And their classes may, depending on the university, be spread all over town. My son went to school in Savannah, and they actually had buildings all over town for their classes that they had to get public transportation to go to them. So that's a big change. As far as study time, in high school, a lot of students can get by with minimal studying and kind of waiting to the last minute. And they might only have to read the material one time. And I think teachers sometimes in high school are really good about outlining what is going to be on that test and maybe pointing out sections that they need to concentrate on and going over an assigned reading and kind of emphasizing what they need to know. Whereas in college, it might just be on the syllabus, what material is going to be covered during that class, and a lot more rigorous demands as far as independent reading and independent work. So they say that for every hour you're in class in college, that you may need to spend 2 to 3 hours for every one of those hours outside of class. And that's a very big change from what is usually sufficient for a lot of students in high school. In college, you need to be reviewing your notes all the time. And also the assigned reading, they may assign reading and they may not discuss it in class, and then it may show up on the final. So that's a very big difference. As far as the teachers and professors that you work with, our teachers are trained in teaching strategies. And they will also, a lot of times, remind them of an upcoming test, a quiz. This is due tomorrow. Be sure to check your syllabus. Lots of reminders. If you have incomplete work, a lot of times they'll tell you that, you know, you need to get this in. They'll accept late work at times. And we, as educators in the public school, we will actually look and see if it looks like somebody needs assistance and go over to them and see if they need help. And we also, you know, attendance is important. If you're not in that seat 90% of the time, you have to make up time in the in a chair to get those credits. In college, they expect the student, it's all about the syllabus. They expect those students to know what the expectations are, what the assignments are, due dates, and all those things. And if they miss notes, the teacher's not going to have a folder to the side for missed work like we sometimes see in high school. It's going to be all up to the student. And if they need help, this is the biggest thing that we preach to our students, I think, and we write a lot of goals about this, is they have to be able to seek assistance if they need it. That we're you know, wait for someone to go ask them if they need help. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but they may not take roll in college, but they might have attendance requirements. You know, the question that we had, there's some schools that, and it's all dependent on the school, on the program, on the professor, where they might not have an attendance policy. As long as you do get the work done and perform well on the projects and the exams and all that, you're fine. My son went to a school, and it was an art school, and if you had more than 3 absences a semester, you did not get the credit. Doesn't matter if it was a medical reason, it didn't matter, because they had to be in those labs and doing the art, the things that they were doing. So it did not matter about medical excuse or anything like that. So it's very important that you know what those attendance requirements are. As far as comprehension, like I said, teachers we're prepared or trained to help students to draw conclusions and kind of help them, guide them to higher order thinking, and help them make connections. In college, the professors, a lot of them may be good teachers, but a lot of professors are professors that are into research and maybe not teaching methods, and they expect you to take notes and identify and form those connections without their assistance necessarily. So it's up to the student to apply what they've learned and what they've read. And there's some great professors out there, do not get me wrong. And I will say that Collin has exceptional professors. I think most of the professors there are there because they want to teach, not looking for tenure, like at a university. As far as tests, you know, in high school, we have a lot of tests and quizzes generally. And this is huge. So now if we have a student that misses a test or a quiz, they can generally make it up. And I kind of hate this. I know it's helpful to our students, but if they don't pass a test, they can usually do some tutoring and retake the test for up to a 70. And you will never, ever see that in college. Again, like I said earlier, teachers will usually review and kind of outline what's going to be on the test. And it's we have a lot of different ways that we grade. Like you might be getting test grades, you might be getting daily grades, you might be getting quiz grades, you might be getting a participation grade. So if you're not good at projects and tests, you have other opportunities to bring that grade up a little bit. Whereas in college, testing is going to be a lot less frequent. You may only have a couple, 2 or 3 in a semester, and you might have a project. So you don't have all those daily grades and participation grades necessarily that would bring your grade up. And it's cumulative. That's a huge difference. So your test is going to be on things that you've covered the whole semester, not just that unit like we do in high school. Again, no retests or test corrections. And then again, you have to be able to show that you can apply what you've learned. It's not just about spitting it out an answer. It's about showing application of what you've learned. For grades, this is kind of like what I was just saying. There's going to be a lot of different grades in high school, whereas in college, it might just be a few grades. So you can earn a credit in high school as long as you get a 70 and you meet attendance requirements. But in college, you only get a grade if you're meet the standard, which is usually a 2.0 or a C. And so if you only have 3 grades and you miss a test or fail a test badly, that can make it mathematically impossible for you to get that credit. So that's in general. Let's talk a little bit about the differences between high school and college for our students that have gotten some services and supports through either special education and 504. This is my biggest soapbox that I get on, is getting people to understand the difference between entitlement and eligibility. So in high school, your children are entitled to receive the services that they've been deemed eligible to receive. So we have IDEA and 504. Those are the laws that cover both special education and 504. And basically it's about remediation, or for 504, about making the playing field level. But in college, there's no entitlement. You have to be eligible to get those accommodations, and that is all determined by each college has different entrance requirements. It's all about ADA. So what we're trying to do at the college level is, it's not about remediating, it's about making everything reasonable and able to be accessed by someone. That makes sense? And it's more about protection from discrimination at the college level. So equal access. And that's a big change from that entitlement to eligibility. And in high school, the school district, we are responsible in special education for doing the evaluation, creating the IEP, implementing programs and all those things. And in 504, the system's a little bit different, but the school is responsible for making all that happen. And then the plan for that is determined through either our art committee meeting or a 504. So the school has a big responsibility in making sure that that happens. In college, it totally shifts to where the student is responsible they have to reach out to disability services. They have to provide the documentation that's needed, and they may even have to pay for evaluation if there's more evaluation required. And the instructor is actually who determines what is mastery, because it's the same for everyone, whether you have a disability or not. Okay, modifications. So this would be just for our students that receive special education services. Some students in special education receive some modified curriculum, and that just means that some of their curriculum is changed. It may not go as deeply. And that is something that that is sometimes granted to students if needed, based on their disability and their present levels of performance, testing, that kind of thing. But in high school, in college, they do not modify curriculum. So all students are required to complete the same coursework and have the same standards. And the example I like to use is, you wouldn't want to know that your doctor had his curriculum modified in college, right? We want everyone to have to learn the same. So, okay, self-advocacy is huge. So we are big, like I said, on trying to get our students to ask for assistance when they need it and to be able to be aware of what their disability is and those types of things. But when we're in high school, your teachers and your parents do a lot of the advocating and teaching advocacy, and y'all interact with the teachers. And if they're not getting what they need, sometimes you have to intervene. But it's very different in college. It's all about the students having to advocate, and that's a big shift. And they have to be able to do their disability paperwork and be able to describe what helped them in high school and what accommodations they're requesting in the future. FERPA. So what FERPA is it is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And basically, in a nutshell, that's the privacy law so that once you're an adult, all rights transfer to the adult, right? And they are it's a right to privacy, and it does not go to parents, that right. So grades and academic standing is given to the student, not to parents, okay? Even if you're paying the bill. And students can sign a form, a FERPA form, but that doesn't give them access to instructors or allow them to do any business for the student. The way I've handled that with I've had 4 kids go through college, or one of them trade technical. And what we did is they knew that we were paying the bill. And so that logon information was provided to us. So we both had the same logon information, and we always had access to see how they were doing and what their grades were and that kind of thing. But it's not your right to be able to intervene and call instructors and do that type of business. Okay, let's talk about college admissions and testing. It used to be, if any of y'all have older kids, it's been a number of years now, but it used to be that if you received modified curriculum, that you had to start at a community college. That is not the case anymore, but you do have to meet whatever entrance requirements there are for the 4-year college, like transcripts, the TSI test that we'll talk about, vaccines, all that fun stuff. But like I said, 4-year universities have their own admission requirements. Let's see. Okay, SAT and ACT tests. Now, I am not the expert on this, so all this information has been provided by our testing coordinators, and all their contact information is going to be provided at the end of this, so you can follow up with any questions. But you have to meet SAT and ACT scores. Now, I know a lot of colleges we're not even requiring that, and Alicia, you can maybe comment on this, because of COVID, but I think some are back, a lot of them are back to doing that, but some still aren't. Is that right?
Many colleges are still test optional, to where it is completely up to the student if they want to submit SAT or ACT scores.
So if it's optional, the advantage for them doing that is a better chance of getting in for competition.
Yeah, exactly. So if your students' SAT or ACT scores are maybe not indicative of their ability, we know that students aren't the greatest test takers sometimes, or they stayed up too late playing Fortnite the night before, or something happened. Think of admissions as and this is for 4-year universities, think of it as a pizza. If you cut it into 8 slices, each one, it becomes a part of that pie. If we take out the testing requirements, the pizza doesn't get smaller. Just every single piece gets a little bit bigger. Does that make sense? So SAT and ACT scores becomes just not part of the equation, but now GPA becomes a little bit more important. essay becomes a little bit more important, et cetera, et cetera.
Awesome. Right. Thank you. And there's different ways to apply for those. For SAT and ACT, the processes are different. And so this just kind of outlines those. Some of the things that you can get is small group administration, extra time, oral administration, but all of it's going to be based on disability. And if you got something in high school does not mean that you're going to get it on the SAT or the ACT. That's probably the biggest takeaway about college testing that I'd like you to hear.
One thing about College Board is a lot of the College Board are kicking back the request of accommodations if there isn't an actual documented medical impairment or disability. So with 504, students can receive 504 services without having a medical documentation because we can serve students in general education with 504. But if they go to apply for College Board and they don't have that medical diagnosis, it will get kicked back from the College Board.
That's good to know. And I added that to that slide, so that's good. Mhm.
Real quick. It's not required for admissions, but most college universities require SAT and ACT scores for scholarships. And then
Yes, and that is true. So if schools are test optional, it's for the admissions department. The scholarships department may still require SAT and ACT scores, but the admissions office doesn't see that. So it isn't two
It's a separate thing.
completely walled off departments. And some schools are even developing scholarships for test optional students. Texas Tech actually just posted their scholarships for students who apply test optional, so they don't have to submit scores at all, even in the scholarship process. It definitely depends on the university.
Yep. And then as far as PSAT and ACT, the request for accommodations, again, it's not a guarantee, and you may have to do the additional documentation. And typically they're going to require cognitive and achievement tests, medical, psychiatric evaluation, or neurological evaluation with current updates. And when you go onto a website at a university, usually they will, like Colin does a great job of listing exactly what they require for whether it's psychiatric or autism or learning disability or ADHD. So they do a really good job of spelling that out. And I think we do a really good job. I can only speak for special education because our evaluation process is different, but the ARD committee does a good job of determining when we want to do a full evaluation so that it'll be current when they leave us. So, okay, so.
Do you think that's going to change? I have a question. Do you think that will change?
That what will change?
Where it's not required.
The question is, do we think that it'll change in the next couple of years where it won't be required?
So as of right now, a lot of colleges are in a cycle of still allowing test optional. They're doing research on if it changes completion rates and grades in college and stuff like that. So that's honestly to be determined. But they will announce that well before your student's application cycle if they're a current freshman.
And as far as the process, it's different for both programs, but for the SAT and the PSAT, the parents initiate that. You have to do a digital consent form, and that's after your ARD or 504. You may discuss those things in the ARD or 504, but the parent has to complete a form to initiate the process, and then it goes to our testing coordinator, and she does what she needs to do. And for the SAT and the PSAT, you have to do a consent form every time that you want to update those accommodations. If you don't want to change the accommodations, you're one and done once you're approved. But as far as the ACT, did you want to interject?
Well, because the students, you said you have a freshman, so the students take the PSAT twice in their college 4 years, in their high school 4 years, and then they have a test. They're able to take the SAT at the school location as well. So they can still receive those accommodations still in high school, but you have to apply for them through the testing coordinator.
And for the ACT, you do it through the ACT website, and then that website will generate an email that goes to the testing coordinator. So it's confusing because they're both different. And for the ACT, this is really important. You have to apply every time that you're testing. And when you go in to sign up to take a test, that'll initiate start that whole process. So, okay. Alicia, you want to come up here and talk about the Texas Success Initiative?
I would be glad to talk about more testing.
Okay, the TSI is the Texas Success Initiative. It is a statewide law, basically, that students need to place at college level before they can take college level classes. This is only for Texas. If students are going out of state, they don't have to worry about this. But the TSI is basically like an SAT or an ACT. There's an ELAR section with English, language arts, and reading, and then a math section as well. Okay, so The TSI is not a pass or fail. It is a placement test. So students who take this test, they either place at college level, they can take any college level classes they choose. They place at a college level, but giving a support class called a co-requisite. So they say, okay, you might be ready for college level work, but let's give you a built-in tutoring class just in case. And then once they pass those classes, then anything in that subject is available to them. Or the test results might say, we need to shore up that foundation a little bit. I'm honestly seeing this a little bit more with the students coming through now because they were late middle school, early college when COVID hit. And we know that there was late middle school, early high school when COVID hit because the math learning loss was real. And so a lot of that foundation needs to be built up a little bit more. So they might get foundation level math classes. There is the opportunity that students may also not score at college level or place on the TSI at all. That does not mean they can't take classes at a community college like Collin. We might look more than at level 1 certificate programs like Certified Nurses Aid, Auto Tech, things like that, to give them more time to come up to college level work.
And it's not the end of the world if they,
No.
my daughter, she struggled, but she took pre-cal in high school. That was fun. And she had to take developmental math because she didn't score well enough. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world and it's not uncommon. And she didn't receive any services in high school.
And it is so much better to get that foundation built up for later success. They have the ability to take the time now. They don't have the responsibilities that we have as older adults. And so it is so much better to build that foundation now while they can, and then move into successful college classes later on. Okay, so what to expect from the TSI. So it is a multiple choice test and it is an adaptive test. So as students answer either correctly or incorrectly, it may change the length of the test or the types of questions that they get. The assessments are untimed, but you do have an appointment time. So if your appointment time is 4 hours and you've only completed 2 of the 3 sections, you are absolutely able to leave that appointment and then schedule another appointment and come back and finish the test. That's for in-person. There is a virtual option available as well, and it is still untimed, but the only downside to doing it that way is every time you schedule an appointment virtually, they charge you because it's through a third-party testing site. So if you wanted to break each section up into a different day, you're going to pay for 3 separate appointments. Whereas if you do it in person, it's just one appointment and that you might be able to spread out over 3 different days. Does that make sense? Okay, so math has 40 items, 20 on the TSI. The diagnostic test is something that students may get or they may not get. It's part of that adaptive test. So if with the first 20 questions, and these are the most important for students to focus on, if with those first 20 questions, they score at college level, they are done with that section. If with those 20 questions, they do not score at college level, they get a second chance called the diagnostic, where then if they score a 6 on the diagnostic, then they are at college level. If they score a 4 or a 5, it places them in a different level. There are no calculators. So I know a lot of students receive accommodations for calculators on tests like the PSAT and the ACT, but there is a built-in calculator in the TSI test. So no external calculator is allowed, but it is built into the test. And then the ELAR, the English Language Arts and Reading, 40 to 48 items, again, the adaptive portion. If they score at college level with the first set of questions, they don't get the diagnostic. If they don't score at college level, they get that second chance. And then if they score high enough, they will get the essay. The essay is a one of those open-ended, tell us your opinion, how do you think about this, compare, contrast, things like that. It doesn't require research, but it does require proper grammatical skills. It does require some variation in vocabulary, and there is a word count element. If students do 300 out of 600 possible words, they probably won't score at college level. If they write more, it does indicate a higher level of difficulty with that essay. Does that make sense? And there is a really wonderful study guide on the AccuPlacer website. AccuPlacer kind of owns the TSI, and so there's a great website on the AccuPlacer, or great study guide on the AccuPlacer website, where you can download practice tests and study guides and things like that. Perfect. And then with the TSI, you can take it again. It is not something where it's just one and then you have to wait 3 months. You could take it again 2 days later if you wanted to. And the next one, possible exemptions. So it is possible, if students take the SAT or the ACT, to receive exemptions from taking the TSI. So if a student scores a 480 on the SAT English portion, they will get an exemption from the TSI ELAR, so they won't have to do that portion. If they score a 530 on the SAT math portion, then they get an exemption from the math TSI. It is possible you can have one without the other. You do not need both scores. So if you have the 480 or higher on the English portion, but not the 530 on the math, then you can just go ahead and take the math TSI portion. With the ACT, it gets a little tricky. If the test was taken before February 14th of this year, so 2023, the composite score plays a role. They need a 23 and at least a 19 on English and a 19 on math. But they changed the rules this year so that after February 14th, the composite score doesn't matter. The math score alone, if it's 22 or higher, is fine. And then if both the English and the reading section add up to 40, then they get an exemption from the TSI. I know it's a very complicated formula. The reading score could be 15, and as long as the English is 25 or higher, then they will score, they will get that exemption from the TSI English. All right, lots of information. That's why this gets sent out afterwards. But the TSI, they can take it if they want to, or if they didn't do well on the SAT or the ACT, or if they didn't take those, but they do have those exemptions available if needed. And then with workforce classes, so this again would be your CNA, your auto tech, your welding, things that do not lead to a degree or a level 2 certificate. If it's just the level 1 certificate at a community college or technical school, the TSI is not required. And so that's where if students need a little bit more time, then those level 1 certificates are a great starting point. And then how the TSI works, basically there is a pre-assessment activity that students need to do first. This is a practice test. It takes about 10 minutes. It's not involved whatsoever. It's nothing a student needs to study for. It is basically just so that we can ensure that students have some kind of idea of what types of questions will be asked on the TSI. There are the practice test questions and feedback. Let's see, and then the school's resources are listed on there as well. Students get a certificate of completion. They don't need to print it out and bring it with them. It is attached to their account. But I will say with the TSI that a student, at least at Collin, has to be a Collin student in order to take the TSI at Collin College. Collin's application is free, so it is beneficial to apply to Collin, have that as in your back pocket, and then you're able to take your TSI with Collin if needed. If a student is going straight to a 4-year school, you would have to work with their testing office to figure out where they might be able to take the test, or if they have the online option.
You know, we're doing the TSI at the high schools now, right?
That's right. The Prosper ISD is now a TSI testing site. So the high schools will be offering the TSI on campus. I do not know if this is going to be just for dual credit students or if it will be for graduating seniors as well. So we'll have more information about that as it becomes available, and no dates have been scheduled yet. So, but that will be much more convenient to be able to take it at the high school. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And then here are those websites that I mentioned earlier about the TSI study resources. AccuPlacer is a great place to go. Colin's website also has a whole list of study resources, but I really like the one on AccuPlacer. And then you can see the practice tests there as well.
And I'll send the PDF out of this so you can have this links.
Perfect. And then, like I said, apply to Collin College, get your CWID, which is your student ID number, and then they'll be able to schedule the test on Collin's website. And I think that's it for the TSI. All right. Sorry, I know it's a lot of numbers.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to talk about college disability services. And just so you know, every school is going to have some type of disability service because by law, they have to, you know, provide services under ADA, right? But this is the huge statement that everyone needs to understand is that there's no special education or 504 services in the college setting. Like I said, it's all about making that playing field even. And different schools have different types of disability services. Some are really known for their super wonderful services, and some are just meeting the standard that the bare minimum. And some schools will have additional services that you can pay extra for. A lot of services, like at Collin, are wonderful services that are available to every student outside of disability services that would help a lot of our young adults. And generally, you know, I always say just go to their website, and if you just put the word disability in the search engine, it'll usually go right to their disability services. Different schools call it different things. Collin, it's called Access, but every school can be a little bit different as far as that. The types of accommodations, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but some examples are extended time on tests, being able to go to a testing center. However, I must say that for a lot of students, going to a testing center isn't the best option, that it might be actually quieter and less distracting doing it in the actual classroom. Having a reader or a scribe for testing, there's different adaptive technology. They have really cool pens at Collin that help you take notes. Books in alternative format might be audiobooks. Help with notes. It might not be, well, a lot of times you don't need a copy of notes because a lot of professors now just do PowerPoints and they post them anyway. And then specific accommodations for different disabilities like hearing impairment, visual impairment. So those are some examples. Here's an example of a couple of schools that have those extra services. Texas Tech is pretty well known for their extra services. They have one for autism and developmental disabilities called CASE, and they have their technique center, and that is something that you pay extra for, and you would have a mentor that met with you and helped you with organization and executive functioning skills and that kind of thing. And then close to us, University of North Texas has a program for neurodivergent called Engage that I've heard really good things about. But a lot of these programs, like I know Engage, they fill up way in advance. So if you're interested in these programs, you want to investigate as early as you can. And I always say that when you're looking at schools and you're going to use services, that should be one of the things that you really look at when you're making your decision. Okay, so basically when you're applying for college, you would not disclose that you have a disability. There's not going to be a blank on the application asking you that. And they really don't want to know because they don't want to be accused of discriminating against you if you didn't get in. So you're not going to, tell them what your disability is during the application process, unless one exception might be where if you feel like there's some irregularities in your transcript because maybe you didn't start receiving services till you were a junior. If there's some, extenuating circumstances like that, you could maybe address it through a letter or a repeal if you don't get in or if you're waitlisted, that kind of thing. And that would be the exception. But it is illegal for them to ask. And then after you're accepted, that's when you would contact Disability Services to start the process. Now, while you're shopping, you can definitely reach out to Disability Services and see what they have to offer. Yes, ma'am.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add something about that
Please.
disclosing as a part of the application process. I've had students ask me if they should say something in their essays. So they're applying to a four-year school and they want to say something in their essay. The best advice that I can give on that is if they want to, and the essay itself does not focus on the disability or on the diagnosis or something like that. Colleges want to see that as a catalyst for how a thought process changed, how a perspective, how performance, how it changed their what they've done in high school. And they want that forward thinking of what will that change for them when they're a student there. So I hope that makes sense. I've had students ask about that. And so you can talk about it in an essay, but make sure it's not just to talk about the diagnosis of the disability. It's more about what you learned or how it changed something for you, and then look forward to who you're going to be on that campus.
Awesome. Make it meaningful and not just a way to get it in there. So, great. Okay, documentation for disability. I talked about this earlier. Each university or community college is going to have different requirements for what you need to provide, but it is the student's responsibility. And I will say, usually they want something 3 years or less. I was told by one of our diagnosticians this week that Colin has changed it on their requirements. They don't have a number now, so it's going to be individually determined. So, but I think we do a really good job on the special education side of making sure that you leave with pretty current paperwork. Now, students that receive accommodations for dyslexia, sometimes they will not have the updated evaluation, so they just recommend that you reach out to the dyslexia specialist or the diagnostician, now that whole thing has changed a lot, about getting an updated evaluation, since y'all's requirements are a little bit different. And if you do need additional testing, that would be the responsibility of the student. I will say that sometimes Texas Workforce, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, sometimes they can help with that process. And as far as the intake, the whole, applying for accommodations, it's going to vary by school, but basically what I've seen is you're going to do some type of application for services. A lot of times that's online, and they will have, you'll have to upload IEPs or 504 plans, evaluations, those types of things. And then they'll have some type of intake process, like an initial meeting where you will go in, and I've seen them do it virtually, and talk to the disability services advisor. But they're going to want to know, what is it that you receive services for? What was your diagnosis? What accommodations did you receive in high school, and what do you think you need now? And as far as parents, you could go with them on their initial visit, but they really want that student to take, from there on out, to take that as their own process. And once the accommodations are granted, they have different processes at different schools, but it's the student's ultimate responsibility to get the information to the professor. So at Collin, I think they get an email, and then they have to contact the professor. And when you think about that's pretty mortifying for a lot of students that don't have experience with that. So that's why you really want them to work on these skills as early as possible. And that, Evan, you want to talk about, you've had experience with 2 daughters at 2 colleges, or
Exactly. I have 2 daughters, one 504, one Fed.
Evan.
And did some dual credit at Collin. And just like we said here, it was her responsibility to get the accommodations to the professors. They've both since graduated and are at UTD, and they've gone through the whole intake process independently. They've got to do it on their own. And then, much like Collin, they have to meet with their disability services person before every semester, tell them what they need. They provide them a letter, and they need to get it to the professor. It's completely on them. The professor is not looking for it. He's not going to ask him for it. They are on their own.
Huge difference.
Huge difference.
Was that really hard for them at first? Or they had the practice with the dual
process
credit?
was
But
hard, but they've managed perfectly.
great. So
Like early.
yeah, do it early. I can't tell you in the past how many students I've had reach out in August scrambling to get this stuff in order. And I know we start encouraging students to start all this stuff like in February. For one thing, you want to be ready to register because all the people that have been going to Collin, they get to register way early. And so if you wait to the last minute, you're going to have 6 a.m. classes and on the days you don't want, so it's really important to try to do all this stuff early. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about post-secondary options. I'm a huge Collin College fan. We are so blessed to have one of the best community colleges in the nation here in our county. And the professors at Collin College, every year they win national awards. They just, we're very lucky. So lots of benefits for starting at a community college, close by. The cost is phenomenally low. It's open enrollment. You don't have to, you might end up in a developmental class, but you don't have to meet certain test requirements to be admitted. It's open enrollment to anyone. You're going to have a lot more support than you would in a traditional college in a lot of ways. Smaller classes. It's a great way to get your basics done. And especially if you don't know what you want to do, go to community college where you're doing some exploration. So certification programs, Alicia talked a little bit about this. There are so many different certification programs available, and Collin has so many of them. And there's online learning there. We'll talk about the technical center, but they have 70 industry recognized certificates, and healthcare, education, creative things, hospitality, oh my gosh, construction management, computer, just so many different ones. And a lot of these you do not have to take the TSI for the first level certificate. And that's a good option for a lot of our students that some of our students did not enjoy school or did not enjoy high school, but they have a special interest, and for them to be able to go straight to that interest and not have to take all the English classes and math. Sometimes that's a really good fit for our students. Okay, technical trade programs. Again, this is where they get to go straight to their interest. And I'm a big fan of some of these private technical programs are great, but the cost differential between that and going to a community college for trade technical program is huge. And we are so blessed to have I still call it new, the Collin College Technical Center. And you can go straight to your area of interest, like I said. And so many of these areas, there's a huge need for. Y'all seen posts and memes about this, but there's not a next generation of a lot of the trades, and we're going to be paying for it when we get our car fixed, our heating and air conditioning. Right after our snowvid, when everybody's stuff froze and we were bringing plumbers in from all over the United States, that's when I went to tour the Collin Technical Center, and I'm like, I bet your enrollment's going to go up in this plumbing because there was such a huge need and we were paying for it. So, so always consider that. My daughter went, 3 of my kids went to college, and my youngest never wanted to do anything but hair. And she went straight to cosmetology school, and she's living the life and does very well and finished school way before her friends. And it's just been a great fit for her. So just think outside the box. That traditional college is not the route for everyone. This is the Collin Technical Campus. I totally recommend that y'all go check it out in person. And what I really like about it is that Collin has committed to changing their programs over time, depending on what is needed in North Texas. I have a neighbor, they just told me that her son, all his friends are going away to school. his plan is he's doing the construction management at Collin through their technical program, and I guarantee he's going to be making some money. I mean, construction management out this way. I kind of wish one of my kids had done that. So, but check out that program. And then I don't know if anybody here is interested in this, but there's also, and I'm just going to talk briefly about this, but there's also inclusive college programs, and that's for students that have an intellectual or developmental disability. And there is over almost 300 of these programs in the United States. And some of them offer residential components, some don't, but they're not traditional credit classes, but they have a component of inclusion and they work on vocational skills. And there's some great programs. And if you want more information about that, the thinkcollege.net is a great, great resource for that. Do you want to talk about scholarships?
Sure. No, be fine. So I talk about all the time with students.
I always get emails about where can I find scholarships and what scholarship resources exist. So there are scholarships for everything. If a student paints with their toes, I guarantee there is a scholarship for it. The best way to find them is to put into a search box scholarships for blank, blank, blank. But there are websites that will do that searching for you. So there's fastweb.com, scholarships.com, so many other search sites. Don't ever pay for a scholarship search. If they're asking you to pay for it, it's a scam. But they have you create a profile. So you do create an account with them, but you create a profile, you put in as many details as possible. Family history, learning differences, interests, hobbies, skills, all of those things. And then the websites search the internet for you and ping your email with scholarships that match your profile details. So the more details you put in, the more results you're going to get. So scholarships are out there, but it can be another job to look for them. So utilize all of those sources you have. Prosper Education Foundation is a wonderful scholarship resource. Is your next slide on scholarships as well, or no? No, okay.
The link goes to a lot of the things that you mentioned.
Okay, perfect. And then Collin has wonderful scholarships as well. The scholarships, we have both fall and spring. And so the average scholarship, $1,000, usually covers an entire semester's worth of classes at Collin. So it's really great resources there. There is something out there for everyone for scholarships. It's just a matter of having the time to do it. And if you have students who are freshmen, sophomores, they can start looking for these things now. Create a spreadsheet. You know, it can be attached to their Prosper Google account if they want, but that if you start looking now and kind of plug them into a spreadsheet, when it comes time to actually apply for them, you've done kind of the legwork already. And so all that's left is to apply by the deadline. So, so scholarships are out there. Please don't hesitate to have your students reach out to me as well. I'm happy to provide as many as I can find.
And they don't have to be going to Collin.
No, not at all. I'm a resource for students, no matter what grade they're in, no matter what their plans are after high school. I'm here. Yes, I'm the Collin person to help with dual credit and all of that, but I'm also just a general college and career counselor as well.
While we're there, do you want to just go ahead and talk about, we're going to have a slide about you, about what you do and your partner and
Sure.
your days and all that.
Sure, I'll talk about me. Absolutely. So I am, like I said, the college and career counselor from Collin. I was at Rock Hill and Prosper. Now I'm at Prosper and Walnut Grove. I have a colleague who's at Rock Hill. Her name is Jaquavia Carr, and we are on site to provide that link to applying to colleges, Collin, dual credit, but also any additional colleges, talking about career pathways. What can I do if I have an interest here? What can I do if I don't have an interest in anything? And trying to talk through that as well. I'm at Prosper on Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm at Walnut Grove Tuesdays and Thursdays. Jaquavia is at Rock Hill Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
You have a slide for all that.
Yes. So we just want to help. We are there to help students and answer questions and be another resource for you. So please don't hesitate to utilize us and reach out to us in any way that you can. All right. You're welcome.
We are really blessed to have them. That resource. Do freshmen qualify for dual credit? It's a question.
Current freshmen can apply for dual credit for their sophomore year to take medical terminology and pathophysiology. But all of the core classes are for juniors and seniors.
Okay, so Texas Workforce Solutions. How many of y'all have heard of Texas Workforce? Years ago, it used to be called DARS. They, government agencies have to change their name every now and then just to confuse us all. So Texas Workforce, that's our state vocational rehabilitation agency. And so they assist individuals with disabilities to become more independent and prepare for a career. It's all about employment. Now that can look different for one student. That might be helping them to get their first job. For another student, it might be helping pay for college because the job it's something that needs training. So some of the different services that they might provide, counseling and guidance, job readiness, college readiness. There's some really neat camps and programs that fill up very quickly for college readiness and career exploration. And then they can help with that whole work experience if maybe they're not quite ready to get the paid job. And they do have some summer programs. But all of it's dependent on what that you do an application and they look at your needs. And so it'll be individually determined what they can provide. I will say that if you are interested in using Texas Workforce Solutions, it is a government agency and sometimes the wheels turn slowly and everybody's, everywhere, everyone's shorthanded these days. So I would make application tomorrow or I would, reach out as soon as you can. If you are a senior, if your child is a senior, you need to do it as soon as possible because it needs to be done before the holidays, before the end of first semester, or they will refer you to an adult counselor and it won't be somebody with the school district, which is okay too. But we like it if you do it with our vocational counselor because we can kind of help keep, make sure that it's all happening. So definitely check it out. We have a student right now that's at Texas Tech, and Texas Workforce is paying for some of those additional services that, the follow along for organization and things like that. There's some good services out there, and there's a lot of money, federal funding for that. It's just kind of working through getting it to happen with the agency. So start early. And this is our contact information. Her name is Catherine Stewart, and her email is there. And if you don't hear back right away, email and call again and let us know how we can help with that. Okay, quickly going to talk about critical skills. Okay, this is where y'all's job as parents, where you can help prepare them by what you're doing with them now. And a lot of these things I wish I had done better with my own children, and I can see why these things are so important. Communication is huge. Getting them to communicate, whether it be emailing their teacher or having to go in and talk to them face to face. How are they good on a Zoom call or a Google Meets call? Are they able to reach out and advocate for themselves? They need to be doing that as much as they can. So if there's an issue, instead of you emailing the teacher, have them email the teacher. They also need to be lecture ready when they get into class and have the supplies that they need. And, they should have a syllabus in all their classes, getting them to really use that syllabus now in high school because everything is about the syllabus when you go to college. So for building those communication skills, like I said, sending emails, practice making phone calls. Oh my gosh, this younger generation, they don't want to use the phone. They just want to text. And a lot of them are shy about having to verbalize and speak. So make them make phone calls, make them make their own appointments, make them go pick up their prescriptions, that kind of thing. Don't allow them to have earphones while they're talking to people. I think that is a good one. And then again, like I said, practicing the Zoom meetings. So a big part of college is everything's going to be about the learning management system. And I think more of our high school classes are going towards that and having everything on Google and maybe Canvas, but they need to be able to manage that whole learning management system in college. And again, it's all about the syllabus. They need to know how to create documents. They need to proofread. And they also need to be reminded that writing is not the same as texting, right? We have our own little texting language. They need to be able to research. And then again, the Zoom. And tips for technology skills, have them use proofreading programs. We use on our IEPs, we use Grammarly because we all make mistakes, and it's nice to use that technology to remind us. Have them check their grades. And, you know, we have Skyward, but they need to be able to use whatever system they're going to have at that college. Set a digital sunset. I love that. You have a time where the phone goes away. And I know that is hard. A lot of our young adults or young folks will be like, do what? But they need to be able to put that phone down at a certain time and let them learn how to search for tutorials. Oh my gosh, you can learn how to do anything online. And I think they know how to do this. They can find anything online. They need to be able to manage and organize their documents, whether it be in the cloud, whether it be in Google, whatever system, where they're able to find what they need and keep it in an organized way. And once you decide where you're going to college, find out what that learning management system is and learn it. What do they use at Collin?
Colin uses Canvas, and
Canvas.
I was actually just thinking, Canvas actually built into the platform has how-to videos and instructional videos. So I would assume that a lot of platforms have that same system where if the college is using it, you can search for, how do I do this?
Self-management, again, it's all about the syllabus. Now, this says planner. Does a planner need to be a paper planner? No, whatever works for them, but they need to have some type of system because you're not going to be there telling them what to do every day and reminding them. Using reminders, whether it be, you know, reminders on their phone, on their through Google Classroom, and then practicing seeking help and following whatever process it is they need for support. So for here, when they need help, they have to find out when the teacher has tutoring. And some teachers might have a sign up and some you might have to email. They need to be able to find out whatever the system is and be able to apply it. And some other examples are you modeling that, right? Are y'all doing these things too? These are all tools that help everyone is having some system of organization. Are you using timers? I use a lot of these tools. I have ADD and it's absolutely necessary that I do these things. Asking questions, practicing introductions. It's that whole, I think our younger generation is a lot more awkward and they need practice on these things, on personal space and how we act in public. Let them run errands for you. My daughter, I tell the story where she was 15 and she was being weird about going up and ordering at Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, you have your learning permit. You want me to get you a driver's license, but you're not going to go up and she ran to the counter. But they need to be doing these things and communicating as much as possible, and then have them make their own appointments, manage their meds, that kind of thing. Okay, so this is just a good visual. This came from Dr. Cheryl Holton. She's a friend of mine, and she's a professor and teaches college success. Do you mind plugging this in for me, Evan? Thanks. She teaches college success, the learning frameworks course at Collin College. And these are what colleges expect. They expect you to attend classes on time. And this sounds so basic. They expect you to create a schedule and a calendar, the syllabus. It's all about the syllabus. They expect you to learn the instructors' names and office hours. And I think a lot of students don't learn names unless they have to. There's one right there. What's up right there? Get their books and supplies, locate their classrooms all in advance, set goals for each course, work with them on that. Get comfortable with technology, learn your campus, and meet 2 people in each class. So that's going to be beneficial for both study reasons, for social reasons. So what are those things that you could target right now that you could work with your child on? And it may be that they don't need help with some of these things. It may mean that they need help with all of those. But if you could just target a few of those things and work on those with them, I think you will really benefit from that. Just wanted to give you some useful resources that we have. This is just for learning disabilities. And but they have this great assessment that talks about all the little things that are important that you need to be able to do when you're in college. Like, can you read up to 200 pages in a week? Are you able to describe what your disability is and what accommodations? Do you ask for assistance? Do you have a system for tracking assignments and things like that? So this is a really good tool that you can access, and it'll help you kind of identify, like I said earlier, some of the things that you can be working on. The next resource this is a questionnaire that we use with a lot of our students for transition. And it kind of just looks at how prepared your student feels they are in general. Do they feel like they're prepared to go to college? Do they have a good idea of if they're, they got the classes that are sufficient to prepare them for the path that they're going into?
Have they filled out an application? Have they filled out the FAFSA?
Yeah.
Do they know the tools that they need for reading and writing?
And then all about the accommodations that they request. So it just really helps you. It even goes into things like, my family will support me if I decide college is for me. Or, I know what learning style works best for me. Do I work better with groups or work individually? Do I have other options if I decide to go a different direction? Have I explored other options? Do I know how to budget money? That kind of thing. And then you come up with a summary and it shows you what areas would be good to work on. Another resource, this is the Texas Transition and Employment Guide. And this is a great resource. It has, no matter what you're doing after high school, whether it be college or straight to work, it has great resources about, what to expect in the different settings, what kind of career exploration activities you can do, even like what do you need to do next, like checklists on, this is what you need to do your 9th grade year, your 10th grade year, when do you need to apply for scholarships, that kind of thing. And then the last one is SpedTex, and this is everything TEA and Texas Transition, some of the sites that we've promoted in the past, has all gone to SpedTex now. So everything has gone to this website, spedtex.org, and every resource you could ever want is on here. You can look up transition, for example. Do you want to click on topic right there under select options? And then transition. And this is going to be where there's a lot of things for getting ready for whatever you're going to do after high school. And they have it in English and Spanish, driving with a disability. One thing I really like, if you want to click on down, next steps to independence, skills and strategies. This is awesome. I mean, this is birth to age 3, but it goes up to high school and beyond. And it's like, what skills does your child have in different areas? So you can see what's next. What do you need to be working on? I love this. And we have this on our Family Resource Center website also. So that's a really good resource. Those are just some things that might be helpful to you. And the next slide. Okay, so that is the information for the Collin College days that Alicia and Ms. Carr are at the different schools. And you can email them. Now, y'all have Collin emails and Prosper emails.
Yes, we have both. We tend to use our Collin ones more just because I've gotten kicked out of my Prosper one a couple of times, and but it is so much easier, I know, to search for my name in the Prosper system, especially for students. So I answer both.
Are the students able to get your email if you are sending it from the Collin one?
Yes.
Because sometimes sometimes Texas Workforce has trouble getting students' because of the blocks and
No.
everything, because they're
Okay.
from the outside. It's an outside source, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not
A
problem.
lot of external emails get blocked by the Prosper system, but the call-in emails do not.
Okay. Do you want to talk about 504 and who they need to talk to and how that whole process works if they have any issues?
Sure. So I'm your resource for as the district for 504. Each of our campuses have a 504 coordinator on campus. For middle school and high school, it is the assistant principals. And then for elementary, it's the counselors. But when you're having your 504 reevaluation meeting, they should be talking to you about the transition of college and offering resources. The counselor really is going to be that point of contact. However, they're typically always in the 504 meeting as well. And then we really start at 8th grade talking about College Board and preparing for College Board, because they can start receiving those accommodations when they take the PSAT in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. So that you want to do those ahead of time. And then what else? Basically everything that Ms. Chalker has said in regards to accommodations and access and resources and applying is the exact same process it is for 504. The only differences would be that that I've seen is for 504 students is we can serve 504 students in public education without having a medical diagnosis. For example, students who may receive special education services under other health impairment of OHI or ADHD have to have a medical diagnosis to receive those types of services for special education. However, for 504, they do not have to have a medical diagnosis, but they can present with characteristics of ADHD, and we can provide accommodations to the student in the class to level that playing field, that they're still receiving the same learning environment and activities and things of that nature to help support them in the classroom. That is the only the
Then when they
difference.
go to college,
Right. So when they go to college, it's really about having those skills that they use as those accommodations that they can, again, transition into college using at the same time those ADHD skills and different things. 504 serves students who have medical impairments. For right now, like I have a brace on my arm, I could be considered a 504 student eligibility because I write with my right hand. I can't take notes in class at this very moment, so I could have accommodations to support me so I am gaining the information I need in the classroom. Also, various needs of students who have sickle cell or celiac disease that affects their medical impairments in the school setting at the same time. So all that Mrs. Chalker has said is the exact same type of process for 504 going into that post-secondary level of education.
but you were saying that you may not need medical documentation in high school for
Correct.
504, but that same condition,
Would
The
have to have
college
a
can,
medical
yeah.
diagnosis in the college setting.
so that's something big to think
That
about.
is a
And if you're
difference.
receiving 504 for dyslexia, how do you get testing renewed for college? Because we were
Well,
talking.
that's what we were saying. Well, now dyslexia is under
Unsped.
SPED, but that's what we were saying, to contact the dyslexia specialist or the diagnostician.
So for example, I have a 17-year-old son who's a junior. He is dyslexic. He went through the dyslexia program. He received Take Flight. He now just is using accommodations to support him. However, I would not have him evaluated again for dyslexia because he's gone through the program. He's being successful with the skills he learned through the dyslexia therapy and the accommodations he's receiving. So I wouldn't, as a parent, go and have him evaluated again for those types of services in college, because of his 504, he can still have small group. He can have extended time, things of that nature. The level of accommodations in college is much more
Right.
minimal than what students receive in the public education classroom.
And let me just address that. So a lot of our students get a lot of accommodations. So if your student is getting a lot of accommodations and they're not using them, or I mean, I recommend that you try to wean off as many accommodations as you can through high school.
Absolutely.
So that cliff is not such a big jump. Because I think a lot of times we over accommodate,
Absolutely.
and that doesn't help them in the long run.
It really doesn't, because there can be so many that the student can just give up and say, I'm not even going to use any of them. We want to be able to provide accommodations to students that support the impairment that they have, that gives them the access that they need in the classroom, because what accommodation they use in one content area may be completely different type of accommodation that they receive in another content area. For example, for math, it's really difficult to do math on the computer. So for an accommodation, they would need a physical copy of whatever they're doing on the computer, depending upon the type of impairment that they have. But if I'm in science or social studies, I can probably do it just fine on the computer. So they change, and they're very, again, that's teaching the student the self-advocacy of what do I need? What works best for me? Not what my parent thinks works best for me, but what do I feel is the best thing that supports me when I am in the classroom with the teacher, or when I am doing my homework independently or studying for a test at the same time.
And that's why we also want them participating in their ARD meeting and their
Yes.
504 meetings and sharing about what works for them and doesn't work for them. So let me finish the contact slides, and then we'll open up for questions. These are the contacts for special education by campus. We've got our diagnostician and our transition specialist. If you have a question you don't know who needs to answer, reach out to any of us and any of the people listed up here, and we'll get you to the right person. And then finally, counselors and testing coordinators for the different high schools. And now questions. So, yes, ma'am.
I have to repeat it for them.
Yeah.
Correct.
So is that done outside of the school that we have?
That is.
Yeah,
yes.
she's asking about having to get more medical documentation for 504. Would that be the parents' family's responsibility? And the answer is yes.
Correct.
Yeah. What other questions do we have? I know it's a lot of information.
My daughter she has dyslexia. She's a freshman, and she's in sped. So going in, she's an athlete, and so we're looking at, it's very possible she really wants to go to a D1 school.
Yes.
And so we're trying to figure out how do we make that happen with dyslexia, and she's extremely.
So it's there's a lot of questions that come to my mind when you say something like that, because dyslexia, there's the level of extreme dyslexia, and there is mild dyslexia. Both my boys are dyslexic. They both were identified completely opposite of each other, and so they both present very differently with dyslexia and what skills they need to support. But there are resources that she can use to support her in college. That's not necessarily an accommodation at the college.
Back further to get like with grade, things like that.
Well, I'm going to interrupt 1 second. I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. You are welcome to sign off, and I will send out these slides. But if you want to stay on and ask a question, you can too. But I wanted to thank everyone for coming and reach out with any questions. But I'm going to stop the recording.
And I think that's definitely good follow because I know there's.
Well, she's asking about grades and how her daughter can be the most supported at her highest best academically to really pursue an area that's of high interest for her of playing sports at a high level college. My suggestion is first and foremost, communication with her teachers, either face to face or via email. The more you communicate, the more your children communicate with their teachers, their needs, the more they can support them in the classroom.
Yeah.
And even if they won't go to them face-to-face up front, start with an email and then gradually encourage them to go face-to-face and talk to their professor or their teacher about what they may be struggling with or what they could get additional support in. Because when they have that collaboration between the two and it's not mama and the teacher,
It empowers.
It does empower them, and a level of self-confidence
Yeah.
also comes out in the classroom.
We had a question about, will kids with 504s be excluded from dual credit? Absolutely not.
No.
I mean,
Not at all.
that's exactly what you would be getting in, I mean,
You do have to apply.
You
Yeah.
do have to apply for dual credit. My 17, my sophomore, my junior is in dual credit, and he has a 504. He is dyslexic, and he's in dual credit right now.
and
But
you would have to
Go through
he
go through
went through the whole
access.
process
Yeah.
with access.
Yep.
I had absolutely nothing to do with him except, hey, you have your meeting. Don't forget. Did you send that to your professor so you get your
coaching.
accommodations? I mean, I'm prompting him with questions, but he still had to do it.
And that's not through his IEP, it's through what
No.
Colin determines.
Correct.
Because it is
Yes.
a cost.
What kind of classes or courses are available with the dual credit?
For dual credit, what classes are available? This is in the Prosper ISD course catalog on page 26, but it's mostly core. I'm sorry, it's mostly core classes. So English 3 equivalent, English 4 equivalent, U.S. history, federal government and economics, college math, statistics, things like that. We also have our health science clinical programs. So students can apply for CNA, EKG, rehab aid, and then seniors can apply for PCT and EMT as well. So we have both the
And that's it.
technical and the core academic classes.
And would SPED kids be able to take those dual credit classes as well?
Yes,
Oh,
as
yeah.
long as they, for the dual credit academic classes, as long as they can score at college level on the TSI. For the health sciences, as long as they took the prerequisite of principles of health science or biomed science. Yep,
They
absolutely.
just wouldn't be served, their accommodations wouldn't be through their IEP, it would be through
Mhm.
access
Yes.
or
You're officially under the umbrella of the college setting
for that.
for the dual credit.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it's-
When to take the TSI. So after a student applies to Collin College, they can take the TSI at any time, but they want to do it pretty much before spring break. It is, so if a student is doing dual credit, if they do the Collin classes in high school, they'll need to take the TSI in high school, or the PSAT score can also provide a waiver for high school students. The TSI is for any college in Texas where students do not have that exemption score on the SAT or ACT.
So for example, today students took the PSAT. So that score can also help what she was speaking of exempting them from certain sections or all of the TSI. And then there was a group of students that took the TSI today at the same time.
Oh, there was?
They did.
Mhm.
Interesting.
So how did they
Yes.
know to do that? How?
I don't know. That's not my department. I'm sorry. I just know they took it. It's not my
But
department.
if you're taking the TSI for somewhere other than Collin, you would have to do it through that college.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So my son's a junior with dyslexia.
Uh-huh.
And so we're starting the whole college process and, he's going to college as well. Is there any reason to like Google the college to see like their disability
Yes.
services?
Mhm.
Is there a better way to find like specifically dyslexia? I know-
Colleges that are strong for students with dyslexia.
Yeah. That would, like, is it like a way that we, which colleges would maybe be better?
Now, my kind of area is autism, and I know that if you Google colleges and autism, you can come up with all these.
Same.
It'll like boom, all these different universities that have programs specific to that, and then you would have to do further investigation. And there's also some great Facebook pages for. I could find out and email it out for students that are going away with learning disabilities that are going to college, and parents talk about all their experiences and. I can actually look it up. And that I think is really, really valuable. You know, talking to parents that have actually used these programs with their children.
Any other questions?
Any other questions online before we sign off?
Do they have a different separate courses, like in life skill courses, for them to be there, something like that?
Could you say that again?
Life 3 courses,
Life skills.
life skills courses.
In the colleges?
Yeah.
Do you mean something that is more working on functional independent skills? That would be like that inclusive college program, the thinkcollege.net. There's also, there's like UNT has a program like that, Green Oaks, Arlington, Texas A&M. Texas is finally catching up and having more programs like that. And that you don't have to take the TSI or the SAT, but they are very competitive to get into. And I can share with you an assessment that kind of looks at the entrance requirements. I mean, you have to be able to manage your own medication, navigate the campus, go through an interview. I mean, it's actually, a lot of things you have to do to be able to be eligible for those programs. So, but we would, if your family member has an IEP, the transition specialist, that's our job, is to help you look at what's next, whether it be regular college or employment or a more independent living situation. So,
Just need help on that.
yeah, we would love to help.
Yeah.
So, cool. Great.
Well, if you get home and there's a question, feel free to email us.
You bet. Well, thank you all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.